Welcome to Part of the Arts with me, Rebecca Godden. Today we have Chantelle Hopkins, a seasoned performer, director and educator who has dedicated her career to bringing stories to life. From touring productions to co-founding Take a Seat Productions, she's been creating unforgettable theatre experiences for audiences of all ages. She's also an experienced teacher, helping build students' confidence, develop their creative skills and shine on stage. Facilitating early years to A-level, she's inspiring the next generation of performers. Get ready for an episode full of storytelling, creativity and expert insights from the world of theatre.
Hi Chantelle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yes. So where are you like zooming into us today? Where are you based?
So I'm in Crystal Palace in South London. Just a little home office. So yeah, sometimes I think we need that little bit of tranquil space just to get things done, I suppose.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing, like having a space, like you were just saying, I've got this office where I can just kind of shut myself away and just focus in. Like today is a podcast day, so it's so good to start my morning with this. So I've asked you to think about a little icebreaker today, often oversharers within our industry. Is there something that comes to mind that you've said where you've put your foot in it and you've just thought, Chantelle, that should have stayed in my mind?
Yeah, actually, it was quite recently. And probably, definitely sort of on reflection should have not said it. But I had a parent that was really frustrated that we had rehearsals. You know, rehearsals always run over. It's always really busy. I think we were like maybe 5 minutes late out than our normal scheduled time, and this parent was furious. And she was like, I've got somewhere else to be, I've got to pick up blah 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 blah. And she was like, you should be getting out of here at 1:15. I need to, you know, really like absolutely furious about
really like my life is more important than yours.
Yeah, exactly. And there was something in me, and she was like, you know, I have to leave here at 1:15. And I think there was something in me and it just really triggered me. And I went, well, I'd really like to leave here at 5:30. I was like, but when parents are late, I can't do anything about it. And she was like, she just said anything. And I just thought, I would never normally say that, because obviously when you're running things, I was like, I just got to that point where I thought, actually, no, we're 5 minutes over. I'm sure you want it to be a good show. I'm sure you want your child to get everything out of this. But it was just, I think because it felt really like attacking as well. I was like, I got my front up and I was like, back sort of thing.
Also, you probably had like a challenging session, like working with children, getting them ready for a show. You probably had also had quite, you know, a challenging session in general, and you just did not need that.
No, I know. And you know, the actual reason why we were late is because they were actually doing a really lovely showing to each other. Like the groups were showing each other. And so actually, although it'd been hard work, we came out and we were like, oh, do you know what? That was actually really nice. And then to get that, you know, when you're like, oh my gosh. And so normally I never would have said something like that. But I was just in that moment, I was like, well, I'd really like to leave at 5:30. But you know, we can't always have what we want.
So like it broke the like ambience of the room. It broke that moment you had with the really nice sharing.
Yeah.
And it was really like, you were like, how dare you break the magic? How dare you?
That's it. Don't break the magic. I like that.
Don't break the magic. Oh, and you know, as someone that also delivers sessions to different ages and abilities, oh my goodness, we never leave on time. Like people, it's normally the other way around. Like people are late picking up rather than us running over, because we've got lives too. Like, and we're used to running sessions as well. So if we do run 5 minutes over, like you said, there's usually a valid point for it. There's a good reason. Wouldn't normally do it because we're very, you know, we know how to run a session as a whole and finish on time.
Exactly. But sometimes, you know, you've got to have that flexibility. You know, I mean, I was late. One of my kids wasn't picked up 45 minutes late last week.
45?
Come on. I didn't have any plans, but I might have done.
But I would just like to go home and have a glass of wine maybe and just chill. And like talking of like people not being flexible, I literally had this like the other week. for one of my sessions, we were watching a National Theatre live performance because we'd been doing a module on physical theatre. I wanted to show them a piece of disabled physical theatre. So we were watching an NT live, and it was, my session is 2 hours, and it was literally like 2 hours. But obviously there's a little interval, and I was like, we will have a little break for like a wee and a chill. So I told the parents that we might be like, and the carers, a little bit late. And we were like plunged into darkness. We're in this beautiful studio with tiered seating, a big screen. So it was like the perfect environment to watch it. Everyone was so into it. It was called The Big Little Things. I don't know if you've heard.
I recently just watched that. How amazing is it?
So honestly,
So
this
good,
could be
isn't it?
what have we seen recently that's given
You
us
know
a
what,
spark?
actually, funnily enough, I put that on my notes to chat to you about today, because I was
Did
like,
you?
that's something that was like sparky,
Oh my
like
God.
just beautiful.
It's like I knew. We're
I
so
know.
in sync. We're so in sync, isn't it?
We
I
are.
just thought it was just beautiful the way that musical theatre was entwined, but in a natural way. And it was like a song cycle, but with physical theatre. The fact that he was there in his wheelchair talking about his lived experience, but he had his able-bodied version of him free, and it was like about them transitioning over, wasn't it?
As well, like I think the whole story was it's so sad, but it's so inspiring. And you sort of get to the end, don't you? And you're like, wow, like you feel so uplifted, and it just is such a beautiful piece of theatre. I think brilliant comedy as well. Like they weave comedy into it so beautifully.
And also the fact that, you know, again, they really like push on the fact that just because you have become disabled and you are now a wheelchair user, it doesn't mean it strips you of your personality and your vibrancy. And I really loved that the nurse had such a quirky, won't ruin it for everyone, but she was such a like sort, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was brilliant. I actually saw her in Motherland. What is it, Amandaland? You know the series on?
Oh my God, I want to watch that. Is it good?
It's really good, really funny, yeah. And I was watching it last night, and I thought, hold on, I recognise her. Why do I recognise her? And I was like, oh, she was the nurse. She was a therapist from Little Big Things. I thought she was brilliant.
Oh, Little really Big Things. I keep getting it the wrong way around. It's not Big Little Things. It's Little Big Things.
Yeah, that's it. Same thing.
I mean, if you've not seen it, NT Live, beautiful. It's all done like, well, I was going to say in the round, but it's in a square, isn't it? But
it is. Yeah, I saw it live last year, and it was just, came out like this, and then when I realised it was on NT Home, I was like, yes, definitely rewatching that on a Saturday night.
It's just so good. Moving in all the right ways. And entertaining as well. And like my students who have learning disabilities, some with physical disabilities as well, you know, I think for them to be represented in some way within a piece on NT Live, and us to really experience that. So going back to my point about a parent carer, like
oh no,
we
were running beautiful thing you were watching, lovely setting.
And I kid you not, like in my eye line, one of them was like at the door, like face literally spread against the door and like looking in, and like boring her eyes into me. And I was like, we're clearly like, you can see that it's still on the screen, but I'm gonna have to come out and talk to you, otherwise you're gonna walk in and ruin this atmosphere. I'm watching this too. This is the first time I've seen this. Like I'm sharing a moment with my students, you know.
I know.
So I went out and she was like, you know, we need to get a train. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But then I was like, oh, sorry. Like one of my, people didn't get to watch the full thing, but it was, I know, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Well, you just have to, I think as well, we probably deal with that on a regular basis, don't you? So you sort of get used to sort of that in interaction, I suppose. But at the same time, I think with that mum, I think that really caught me off guard, and I think that's why my response then afterwards, I thought, oh, probably shouldn't have said that. It was just one of those things.
I feel like the tone in which you probably delivered it was what I always like to say, firm but fair.
Yeah,
there was probably, you weren't unprofessional, you were just firm.
Yeah, I'm going to take that. That's what I'm going with.
There you go. I'm basically giving you grace and saying you were fine.
Thank you.
Don't worry. I feel like sometimes people that collect the kids or the students or the people that we work with, also need a little bit of a reminding of why we're there.
Yeah, we're doing a good thing.
Yeah. So is there any, before we move on, is there anything else that you've watched that left you with a spark that you want to talk about, apart from what we both collectively watched recently?
I thought that's so funny that I put that in there. I tell you what, there was a moment last week, and it was actually at work. So I work for Stagecoach Croydon, and we're slap bang in the middle of show term. So we've got a fantastic script that one of our previous drama teachers has written for us, and it's really funny. We've got a huge cast. We've got like 60, 75 kids, all in the same show.
That's a huge undertaking.
But it's brilliant. The writing is great. It really fits our school. And there was a moment, we've got a wonderful singing teacher who has sort of rewritten the words to songs as well, so really well-known songs, but she's rewritten the words to use them sort of within the show. And sort of relating to the different characters and things. And there was a moment last week, and she said, "Oh, can you come and watch?" She was like, "Just come and have a little watch of what they've done." And it was to Wicked, and so they sort of rejig some of the sort of Wicked sort of songs, and it was, all the kids were so engaged, they were so excited by it as well, that they just gave it everything. And it just came out, and I was like, oh, it was that little thing, that little like spark, it like ignites your, like, or reignites, should I say, like your love for the arts. And because sometimes, you know, I'm sure you get the same, Becca, with like doing the admin around it and things like that. And you can sometimes get a bit bogged down with that. And so actually, when you see those little moments, you're like, oh, that's why I'm doing this. Like, and I just came away and I just couldn't stop smiling because it was so lovely. And it just, got me really excited for show term, but also for them, that they were so excited to like perform it. And it was just a really lovely moment. And I was like, oh, it's so nice. So,
and again, that is that magic of the room, of being in that environment. And exactly what you said, it's sometimes we've got to remind ourselves why we do what we do, because you know, we do it for work, it is a job, but it's fueled by passion. And I think that's quite a precarious place to be in with a career, because you're like you never want the creativity to be sucked away from the joy, but then at the same time you've got to be at a professional standard to get it where you want to be. And I think it's really easy to just be like, oh my gosh, slog, and then I think exactly like you said, if you're working with a group of people, or you're directing a piece, or even performing in a piece, and suddenly it clicks and it comes together, it's like that moment of goosebumps. This is why I do it.
That's it. Yeah, it is the goosebump moment.
And I think really special. It's so true of what you said. Like, we've got to remind ourselves of that. I think talk about the good more than the bad, which again I think is hard, especially as artists like that work with maybe younger people or vulnerable people. You can never show that to them, or you don't have like a cohort of colleagues where you can go to them about. So you end up meeting with like-minded creatives, and kind of they're your colleagues, and it's cathartic to go through. But I think a lot of the time we do talk about the negative things or the stressful things, and not always but then there was this moment, and actually this is how it went. I think if someone asks me, oh, how did your show go, I'll always be like, oh well,
this didn't happen, that
blah blah blah,
that bit didn't quite work,
blah blah, wouldn't go on stage,
but I think no, you are right. And I think sometimes you know, it can be in a way quite a lonely job, I think, because like you say, you don't have, you know, I'm a Perry in lots of different schools, so the schools are lovely, and you know, the teachers are very welcoming, but you don't have that same, like, I suppose, rapport and relationship that you would do sort of going into an office. Like if you went into an office and you built that sort of relationship, those friendships. And so I mean, occasionally me and my friend will when our schedules actually line up, we sort of call each other on the way home on like a Thursday evening and just have a little bit of a chat about how did you get on today, because like you say, like, you know, you're putting on this this sort of, I suppose, like front almost, aren't you, all the way through? Like you're there to provide the energy and the that great sense of, like, you know, loveliness in the room, I guess.
Yeah.
And everyone to feel comfortable and enjoying what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think, you know, like you say, you come out and you're like, oh gosh, you know what, actually XYZ. But you are right in that we probably should look at the other sides more, because there are so many of those as well.
But it is so
so
different.
balance.
Balance, absolutely. And like, you know, you are a facilitator, I'm a facilitator, a kind of a teacher of the performing arts. And like you said, absolutely, when you're freelance or you're ad hoc or you're visiting different places and different people, it can be very lonely, and it's almost like playing a character. And that's why I think the best facilitators within the arts need to have been through the performance side of things themselves. They need to have had the base training, or they've performed themselves in some capacity, because I think you are putting yourself out there and you are playing a role of a facilitator. Yes, you still got to be yourself, but you've got to leave your baggage at the door, come in and just be like, right. And then if you can do that, who you're working with are more likely to do that as well, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I also think it's probably, in a way, sort of quite nice you saying, like, leave your baggage at the door. You know, if you've had a really, you know, it can work both ways, can't it? Because if you've had a really rubbish morning or whatever, you know, you can't bring that to the lesson. You know, that has to change. But sometimes that's really good for you to let go of that and go, actually, do you know what? You come out and you feel so different. So I think, it works both ways, I think.
I always say that, actually, like if I'm having a really like I'm in an office right now, I do have a small team of colleagues for part of my job, and sometimes if I'm in the office and we've just had a really stressful kind of coordination, admin, management of the theatre company day, I go into session and I'm like, I could really do with not being here. But I always remind myself, because I always know that 9 times out of 10 I feel better after having run that session. Like my participants lift me up, do you know what I mean? And
exactly. You lift them and they lift you, and I think that's the
and we run around and play buzzy bees, and I'm like, right, let's just kind of shake it all out. And I'm very honest as well, I think, as a facilitator. I'm always like, look, you know, if someone's playing up or someone's bringing something in that they can't let go of, I'm like, look, I've also had a bit of a bad day, but I've left it, I'm leaving it at the door. I want to now have a good time and this be a safe, enjoyable space. I can do that, you can do that. And I think it's like relatable, isn't it?
It is, it really is. I think that's the great thing about working with like young people, especially young people, because I think young people can probably do that better than adults.
So I actually think so, not get like bogged down or fixated on something.
And they're like, I'm present, I'm in the moment, let's go for it. Like, I had a lovely group yesterday. I was gonna like talk to you about that, actually, because you've kind of taught and facilitated a wide range of age ranges, you know, early years right up to A level. That must be so different, and you must have to have quite a nuanced style in each of those settings. But it'd just be interesting to hear kind of like how you adapt, and also what's your favorite cohort, like who are your favorite age range to teach? Really hard. That's really hard. I don't think I've got a favorite. I think they all bring something really special to the room. I love, you know, with the little ones, obviously it is more, I think it's, you know, imaginative play. It's it's really sort of, you know, building on those core skills of, you know, even just being able to tell me what you're having for snack, you know, something really, really simple. You know, we have students that come to us that are so shy, and, you know, they don't, especially, I think we've noticed a lot since like the whole COVID sort of era. You really do see the change in students, like the ones that were really, really young when they were during that time, sort of coming through into school, and you can see that there's a real a difference in sort of that sort of how they behave and interact and communicate and things like that. So I think definitely with the younger ones, it's more just getting them to communicate and you know, speak to you or listen, or you know, even just put their hand up and share something. But also they're so great at, like I say, at playing and doing those sort of like interactive stories and all of those things. So I think that's sort of like where my love for that has come from in terms of like building my theatre company was, you know, really using their imagination as part of a workshop or an experience or something. But then on the other hand, you know, when you get to A level or the older students, you can tackle some really sort of challenging material.
They've
and
got that critical thinking, haven't they? And they're able to kind of see beyond the play and
exactly, and sort of analyze it as well, and sort of bring different skills in there. So I don't think I've got a favorite. I think you know, and actually even sort of, you know, that's both ends of the spectrum, but then you have like in the middle, you sort of have, you know, sometimes when they're in maybe like year 9, they sort of they go from sort of year 7, they're really keen and sort of really sparkly, and then they get to year 9 and they go back into their shell. So I think you really have to sort of adapt what you're doing at every age, because they're still developing all the way through their sort of childhood. So I think, I always think about, right, where are they in school, what are they doing, how old are they, and, you know, sort of adapting the lesson specifically for that age group, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree. Like, I'm the same as you. I've worked with such a range of age ranges, from your early years right up to your older people living with dementia in care homes. So it's, you know, it's really been a journey throughout my kind of career of working with lots of different people. And I think it's only made me a better facilitator, a better director, more understanding, more empathetic. Exactly like you said, everyone's got their challenges at different ages because of different things. And being a teenager is like, I do not envy any teenagers in this day and age.
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. No. I sort of think back to them, like back to their age when we were that age, and I was thinking, I don't remember it being that hard. You know, I really do think they've got a really hard deal at the minute, like, and social media.
They need people like you going into the schools. Like, you know, obviously their teachers are amazing. Oh my gosh, they don't get paid enough for what they do, and they're brilliant.
I know.
But having an external person like yourself doing LAMDA, for example, coming in and just being that fresh pair of eyes from a bit of an outside worldly and artistic experience, especially from COVID, the communication skills that's going to give, and the confidence that's going to give, even if those kids don't want to be a performer on stage or screen or anything like that, just getting them through that angsty part of their life so that they're a bit more developed to kind of go on to what they want to do next, I think is like something that the government is not understanding.
And even just like taking sort of, you know, a lot of the time we do our lessons through the school day, so a bit like sort of music lessons, and I just think we always say that it's like half an hour out of your day where hopefully you can just be a bit free, and, you know, if it's been a bit of a stressful morning, you know, there's a lot of pressure on young people, I think, at all ages, to achieve a certain thing. And so I know our sort of LAMDA lessons are, you know, there is an exam at the end of the year, but we really wanted to sort of promote the fact that actually it doesn't really matter. It's just something for you to sort of work towards, but it doesn't matter if you get a pass or a distinction. Either is great. It's based on you and your skills. And really what it should do is that half an hour, you know, that you come out of your lesson and you come to drama, and you're able to just, you know, be a bit creative, work with your friends, use your imagination. You know, that I think that's what's really important. And I think it does really make a difference. And if we could have more of that, where there's less pressure, do you know what I mean? Like, yes, okay, we've got to work on a scene, but just half an hour where there's less pressure on them, I think it would make a big difference.
100%. And, you know, we're just chatting away about like facilitation, and I've just kind of thrown LAMDA in there, but some people that are listening to this might not have come across this acronym that we are using. And, you know, you are so established within LAMDA and you've made it your career through the years. So I want to talk a little bit about that, but would you be able to just kind of sum up what LAMDA is for us, and what you do with it and how it works?
Yes. So LAMDA is well, fundamentally a drama school, but they are also an examination board. So they're the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. So that's your LAMDA.
That's your acronym.
Yeah, I know. It's great. So the way we offer it is we're not sort of employed by LAMDA. You're a freelancer that's able to take their syllabus and teach it through schools. Or sort of other external activity clubs and things like that, or online. You know, I know we've worked together doing that as well. So it's you sort of work through a grade, a bit like a music lesson. I always think it's a great way to sort of like a music grade. You work sort of through the year or through the term, focusing on maybe they offer monologues, duologues, group exams, devising. I mean, they've got so many options now.
Public speaking,
there's so many different things that you know, you can then sort of find what's suitable for each student, and then it culminates in a sort of end of year exam where they go to the London LAMDA school and they perform in front of an examiner, and then later they get a result and a certificate and some feedback. And
you reminded me that I actually need to book my student into hers, so thank you. It's February. I need to do it.
I know, that's why I was like, I haven't had time to send you anything, because it's just this time just before you hit exam season is just always frantic. But yeah, that's basically what LAMDA is, and I think we have started offering it. I teamed up with my my friend Jane, and we've sort of expanded into different schools across London, which we now have sort of other teachers working for us and things as well, which is lovely. So delivering that programme, and we try to do it so they run throughout the school day. So children would come out of their normal lessons for half an hour once a week, and then work. A lot of the time we do sort of group scenes, which is really lovely. They do a little thing, you know, Alice in Wonderland, Snow Queen, all of that. It's really nice. And then and do a little exam at the end. So that's basically LAMDA in a nutshell.
Thank you. And the fact that, you know, you've made that into, you know, your, not your sole career, but it's mainly what you practice now.
It is,
your career is, and it's become like a full-time job. I think not a lot of people could think of that as being like a career path, if you know what I mean. And did that come about naturally? Was it just, you know, you started doing some LAMDA ad hoc, then you built a rapport with schools, you collected groups? Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So I initially, when I started, it was very much a sort of like means to an end, because I was trying to build Take a Seat at the time, like my theatre company. So I was trying to do that. And then obviously, as you know, as a creative, things don't always pay very well. So I was like, right, well, we need to do some sort of teaching and things on the side. And I actually met, who is now like one of my best friends, I actually met her on Facebook. She was looking for a LAMDA teacher. And I thought, oh, I can do that. So I met her, and literally from there, she sort of introduced me to sort of how she was doing things, and we built the program sort of together in the schools that she was in, and then you sort of get to almost like a point where you're like, oh, how do I grow from here? You know, your week is really full, how do you keep growing? And so that's when we decided to sort of come together and go, right, well, let's build this into a business that we can, you know, because we really like the structure that we create. And everyone, I think the great thing with LAMDA, you can teach it how you like. It's really flexible, and I think that's lovely, and I think that's what appeals to so many creatives as well, because you can really put your own spin on it, which is brilliant.
You put your facilitation and your directing style into it, don't you? And also it is, you know, I find, because I do LAMDA as part of my week, I find that it's, you know, quite student led as well, because you've only got half an hour or an hour if you're lucky of their time, and then they've got to go away and do the rest. So it's kind of
really like a guide, aren't you? Like,
it's a partnership in a way, because you're kind of a little bit like, I've got you for half an hour, here's what we're going to do, but then you've got to work on this for next week to bring me something back that we can develop, especially with the older students.
Yes, that is really nice, isn't it? Because I think you can sort of give them, and also sort of putting the ball back in their court as well, and saying like, okay, well, if you've done this before with me, they sort of get to realise your sort of style, and how, you know, what would you do at this section? How would you move? How would you get this bit? You know, how would you show that?
What would Rebecca say? She'd probably say, you're not moving enough. Like, and physicality, please.
How did you get into LAMDA, Becca?
So mine was a little bit kind of what I said about maybe was your journey, was I covered for someone. So I was back in my hometown of Milton Keynes. I'd gone back after to living down south and working as like a theatre practitioner. And when I moved back, I set myself up as a kind of fully self-employed facilitator. And I started to kind of like train down the facilitation route to add another kind of string to my bow. So I acted, I directed, and I was like, I feel like I want to facilitate. And I was already doing it with some of my work. So I basically started to work with different, you know, theatre companies, doing kind of after school clubs, assisting on kind of stagecoach style programs as like an assistant and helping them with their shows. And then I met a kind of like-minded creative actually through my church that I went to, and she said, oh, she does LAMDA at this private school in Milton Keynes, and she thinks I'd be great for it, and sometimes she's on tour. So if she is, can she just kind of hand it over to me for like chunks? So it wasn't just like when she was ill or something. I actually fully got to be with those students for, you know, a period of time. And I just kind of trained on the job, as it were. Obviously you get all of the syllabus and everything. Back then it was in books. So I had the books I used to carry around with me.
Yes, I remember those chunky books. The
chunky books that would just live in my car. And I think I was there from like 4 p.m. till like 7 or 8 or something. And I had back-to-back students. Like I barely could go for a wee break. It was you know, full on, and I had pairs, solos, groups, and it was just, they all just came into this room and we went through verse and prose, acting and public speaking. I had like all three. They were all doing different things,
but quite nice for you to have that sort of variation.
Oh my gosh, I got kind of trained on the job of the most popular variations of LAMDA. So then that kind of set me up for doing it in the future. And then so I did that for quite a while. And then when I moved to London, I kind of went out and said, look, I've got this experience to some schools and stuff. And again, I did a bit of cover, but I didn't get into like a school. It just didn't fit with my schedule. Because when I moved to London, then I decided, right, I'm a facilitator now. I've done that for a few years. I'm a fully fledged facilitator. I wanted to go back into acting. I'm moving to London. I've not lived in the big city. I've not tried to make it as an actor there. So I'm going to do that, but I know that I've got my facilitation to pay the bills.
Exactly. Because you have to have that, don't you? You really do. You have to have, and it's
made sure I trained in something that was in my field.
Yes,
I was proud of doing that, because, you know, I did do a few promo jobs here and there, but I was so proud of the fact, and I still am, that I could enjoy performative aspects of like my B side of my career while I was also acting. And you know, that's how we met in London through a mutual friend. And that kind of brings me on to
all those years ago.
All those years ago. What year was it 2019, 2018?
Yes, I think might have been 2018. I think.
Yeah, I think 2018 when I moved.
Yeah, because I feel like it was a couple of years before COVID. So
yeah, I got a couple of years and I was locked down in my 1-bedroom flat. God.
Oh my gosh.
A couple of good years of acting. And part of my acting career in London was thanks to you and, you know, your theatre company that you touched upon earlier, of Take a Seat Productions. So kind of, I'd love to talk to you about the journey of that. You know, it's the end of an era, I will say, because
I know.
This year it
came to a close. Becca, when I saw you last time and we were talking about this, it really tugs on my heartstrings, because like the things you were saying, I was like, oh my gosh, have I done the right thing here? Should I not have given this up? But yeah, it has been, I mean, it's been 10 years. Since I first started, and
which is amazing for a theatre company that started for nothing. But the longevity of that is a credit.
Thank you. Yeah, it has felt like, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it has felt like a slog. Like it's been, it has been really hard, and you know, and part of the reason is, you know, in terms of I suppose like the LAMDA stuff as well, and teaching and sort of how falling into that is because trying to sort of, you know, fund and make money when you're running a theatre company, and let's just say like we don't do it to pay the bills, we don't do it, you know, to make money on it, because you're doing it for the love of it.
Yeah.
And I know you know that as well. So it's it started 2015, it started, and it was me and my friend actually sort of co-founded it together. I was working in advertising at the time, and you know, I enjoyed it, it was fine, but I had sort of gone to musical theatre college and then sort of performed and took a break out, and I thought, actually, do you know what, I just need a bit of a normal job, whatever that is. A normal job at this time.
You needed some consistency, Chantelle. You just needed some consistency.
Absolutely, yeah. Consistency.
This world is not consistent.
No, consistency and probably funds as well at that point.
Yes.
So yeah, those two things. And then my company I was working for at the time, they did a thing called a family day, and everyone at the company was always like, "Oh gosh, well, like we don't want to have to do this," like, because it was the sort of employees that had to get on board with sort of delivering this day and bringing in their families and things. And I was like, this sounds quite fun. I think I'd quite like to be part of this. And so it sort of started from there. And then I think it was just as I left, that is when I did my first family day there, which was the very first one we ever did, which was an Alice in Wonderland based. So it's an interactive story. So me and my friend who set up the company, I was Alice, she was the Mad Hatter and the White Rabbit and all of the other characters basically. So she multi-rolled. Yeah, she was all of them. And we did this like interactive workshop where we led the story of Alice in Wonderland. We moved around the room, we set up the space like with, you know, lovely backdrops and table settings and things like that. And it just sort of went from there. And yeah, I think initially the idea was to sort of like really just focus on corporate sort of family days, which, you know, we did really enjoy, and we did lots of them. And I think it's, you know, I think it's a fantastic thing.
There is a little bit more money in the corporate side of doing that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, you know, that was also sort of, you know, when you're thinking as a business, how do we grow? How do we actually make money here? That is, you know, schools don't always have the sort of the funding to be able to pay out for sort of big performances or workshops on things. So yeah,
do it a lot of the time they can't do it. Yeah,
exactly. So, and that's sort of where it started really, and then it grew. We started offering sort of parties and things like that, and then where did we go from there? I'm trying to think. From there, I think we started doing, that's when, so a few years later, we then started to go, right, okay, how can we bring our sort of immersive theatre experiences but into an actual like show as well, which is where you got involved, Becca, which is amazing. And yeah, so from there we sort of started doing these like annual sort of pantos and things like that, but for local communities, which I think it's something that's like, it's getting there. I think there are more things in the communities, and I think you can find some really fabulous stuff in local community theatre, you know. And
bringing that professional standard, which is what Take a Seat Productions did, you know, bringing the professional standard of performance and performers into the community, I think that's just so special and so important and accessible.
Absolutely.
For those communities, for it to be brought to them. They don't have to travel in, because a lot of it was South London. They don't need to travel into the West End and pay a fortune to see a pantomime or see a Easter show or see a Halloween performance. They can have it come to them.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, and that was one of my sort of non-negotiables, was that I didn't then want these, you know, ticket prices and things to be inaccessible for people, because, you know, I mean, I was looking the other day going to the theatre, and some of the tickets were like £150. And I was like, oh my gosh, who can afford in this you know, the crisis that we're going through already at the moment, who can afford to pay those sorts
even for a special occasion? That's pushing it. Like,
you know, it's a lot. I even sort of, you know, on your own it's a lot, but imagine taking, you know, your partner and 2 kids. Crazy. And so that was the thing. I was like, we never want to be going down that road of charging a lot of money for tickets. And so obviously that, you know, in turn meant you don't really make any money.
And and I'm going to say as well, because I'm very for this, and not everywhere does it, that's not equity, you paid your performers fairly.
Oh, thank you. That's really, yeah, I think that's so important. And I think that sort of like links back to what you were saying before about sort of, it's great if you come from that performance side of things when you go into your teaching or your leading or managing, whatever, because you're like, I was in that position, I wouldn't want to ever.
I wouldn't do it at that price, so I need
exactly to like no thank you, but no thank you. And so that was also important. That was like, you know, two of the things that I thought, actually paying people fairly and keeping ticket prices down, but creating a really great experience for everyone. And I think on the whole it was really fun. Like, I loved all of the shows that we did together. They were just amazing.
You know, the pantos became a bit of a staple for me for a few years, and I loved it. And when I told like fellow actors about it, or people about what I did, I always used to call it like I'm in a part-time panto. Because it was, you know, sometimes there'd be a few shows across a few weekends, but you do like 2 to 4 shows back to back in a day, which is wild. But then when you think about actual panto runs, they're doing 12 shows per week for like 2 months, you know, of the festive period with no breaks. I get to have the week to, you know, go back to like life, which is, you know, wild. And I just always used to love that. I'd be like, I'm in a part-time panto, and everyone's like, what's that? And it was such a unique,
really nice, actually. That's quite a good company name.
Part-time panto. There we go. If you ever want to come back, we can make a company. I'm pointing it here, guys. No one can steal this name. Part-time panto.
There
we go. Limited. We could just do part-time pantos, because again, it's that, and I've not come across another company as an actor that kind of offers that and offers that flexibility. And what I will say, they were like all the way through 60-minute long pantos. We weren't doing 2 hours with an interval, 4 shows back to back. That would be
full days, 8 till 8.
I think I'd be dead. Like, I don't think.
No, they were sort of like a little condensed panto, weren't they?
And they were immersive. And what I loved as well was the site specificness. I love the fact that we performed in like a kind of derelict mansion, or like, it was so like, the spaces were cool, especially with like the Halloween performances when we were in the, you know, the mansion, and we made it all
I know, they were brilliant, weren't they?
living my best life as Maleficent, you know.
I've still got that costume if ever you need to borrow it for Halloween.
I mean, I'll just walk around the streets of
I do actually remember getting that costume. I think it was with you in mind, just thinking, right, okay, what can Becca be this year? I think because she played such an iconic role. Like,
I just love that character as well, because it's a very fine line between like being nasty to the kids and like actually performing, you know, because she's, you know, she's like my beasties, and they were like a little bit scared of me but a little bit in awe of me, and it was quite a balance.
And actually, I must thank you, Becca, because you always, out of everything I ever worked with, you've always been the one that has put so much like love and care into the characters. And like, I remember you messaging me, I can't remember what show it was, but you were like, I've watched this, I've made some notes, I've got this, I've thought about these extra lines that I could add in.
Chantelle, I get really into it.
Love it. So thank you, because you always just gave like 120% to all of those characters, and it was just so fun to work with you. So,
and do you know what? I don't do things by halves. Like, I'm in it or I'm out. I'm not lukewarm. I'm hot or I'm cold.
Fully costumed.
I'm like, but I do very much get. And you know what? Like, we've got to immerse ourselves in the world, otherwise how are other people going to be brought into it?
And how are they going to believe you? Absolutely.
And believe you. And it was a fun ride, and like, again, congratulations for 10 years. Like, that's amazing. And it's quite a nice kind of like chunk of time to then be like, this is where we're finishing 10 years.
It is actually. It wasn't really intended that way. And I didn't go, oh, right, that's it, I'm done. I did sort of toy with the idea for ages about sort of, and the last few years, as the LAMDA programs have really grown, I think it's just naturally gone, actually, have the time
Yeah.
to put all of that together, because although it was sort of part-time in terms of performance, the actual work that goes on in terms of, I mean, you know this as well, like creating a show, the work that goes in to actually putting it all together is insane. You know, I was writing scripts and things,
curating and producing.
Oh my
it's a job in itself.
Yeah, and a full-time job. You know, I was writing scripts back in sort of like June, May, June, sort of trying to get it together, then to source costumes, then to sort of promote it, then to get rehearsals in, all of those sorts of things. It all takes so much time, and
you're a one-woman band with the writing, the producing, the know, marketing. Everything. I was going to say the only thing you didn't do was act, but you did make a couple of surprise appearances.
I did when we couldn't get the beanstalk. I was the beanstalk, and wasn't I the cow as well at some point? I think.
Cow,
Cow and the beanstalk. Iconic roles, I think you'll call them.
Iconic appearances from Chantelle.
I remember with that beanstalk, I think I was messaging you at the time, being like, I don't know how I'm going, because it was so heavy, and thinking, how am I going to get this beanstalk to stand up or to grow? You know, it was Jack and the beanstalk. So I thought, well, the only thing is I'm going to have to wear it.
I'm going to have to be in it and grow with the beanstalk.
Oh my God.
And you know what? Pantomime is the only place you can, something that works. And it made it better. It lent itself, just this beanstalk shuffling on.
Yeah. It was great actually. Maybe that's one of the things I'll send you, a picture of that.
Yes, please. The beanstalk and the cow, we want to see it. The listeners want to see it, definitely. And talking of those iconic roles from you, Chantelle, before we kind of wrap up today, I'd love to ask you what the weirdest job you've ever done is, like the weird and wonderful of your career. Is there something that, apart from being a beanstalk and a cow, is there something that kind of sticks in your mind of that was like not on my bingo card for life?
I don't, do you know what? I mean, the beanstalk, that is quite a good, to be honest, I think that's quite a good role. But I think weirdest job, I remember doing, and I remember doing this party actually when I worked for a company years ago.
Yeah.
Before I started my own, and they booked us for this party, and I think it was a mermaid party, but weirdly the company at the time, they didn't provide costumes, so they expected you to wear something, right? And I just thought,
oh my God, the quality control with that is wild. They must have got people going like me, like Method, being like, I'm fully committed to this, and then some people just pulling any old thing out of their wardrobe.
Well, I was like, there was like, you need to wear some, I don't know if was it a mermaid or something? And I just thought, but I don't have anything that I mean, this is before I started my company. I was like, now I'd be like, right, which costume am I choosing? But at the time,
I don't have a mermaid tail.
Funnily enough. So I remember sort of like getting some like a shimmery sort of top and some random bits of material to sort of put around, because I just thought, well, like, what else have I got? And I turned up, and the party was in this restaurant, and I thought, oh well, it must be you know, a private room or something that they have here for this birthday party. No, it was not a private room. It was in the middle of this, like, must have been like a Harvester or somewhere like that. Harvester restaurant, Sunday afternoon, everyone eating their Sunday lunch, and there I am performing as a mermaid with a very dodgy costume, singing with this backing track, and I just thought, what am I doing? And everyone else probably thought, is this something the restaurant's providing? Like,
free, like uncomfortably tucking into their roast dinner, like not making eye contact.
I know, and I'm sort of like sat on the floor pretending to, you know, have my I mean, it was just really odd. And also, it's one of those things, you're sitting on a restaurant floor, there's bits of chips on, and I just, that thing does stick in my head as, one of the jobs that I think,
so much of this, Chantelle, because I've been there. I've literally experienced pretty much, apart from I did get a costume provided for me from this company.
There we go.
That's the same thing in a Pizza Express in central London. I walk in as a rainbow unicorn. I've got a rainbow wig. I've got a rainbow tutu. I've got rainbow leg warmers. Like I've got I look like pride has thrown up on me. Like literally, but a unicorn. But make it unicorn. And I've got my horn as well. And I walk in, and I didn't walk in costume because I had to get the tube and stuff when I lived in London. And I know people travel around in weird stuff in London, but I wasn't that bold.
No, I'm a step too far.
Yeah, unless it was in fact Pride, then it would have been great. I could have worked and then gone for like a party after. I'd have been like perfect. So I walked in with my stuff and was like, you know, I'm early, can I get changed? The restaurant manager was like, oh yeah, like your kind of party isn't here yet. So I went and got changed, came out, and I was like, okay, like where's my side room? Where's like no, same as you. It was just in the restaurant, just like they just had a long table, and then there was one. I was like, what am I? I'm meant to play like party games with them and stuff. Like what? How am I meant to? I thought
do this.
How am I going to do this? And yeah, exactly the same. I was thinking, no, I'm never taking a booking in a restaurant again.
No, that was my one and only.
Yeah, same. I was like, no.
No. Well, I mean, what do they want you to do? It's just crazy.
I know.
But it is funny when you look back on those jobs, isn't it? Like, you know, the things, especially I think when you're starting off early in your career, you sort of like, you'll take as much as you can, really.
Oh, you kind of don't even blink. You're just like, okay, got to hustle. Or in between auditions, or in between directing gigs, or in between LAMDA, I'll just take some extra kind of stuff. And then you're like, oh, where am I?
Didn't think about this properly.
Yeah, I did not. Yeah. And then you're like, you come out and you're like, was that money worth it? I don't know.
I think, especially when it came to those sorts of parties, you know, kids' parties are hard though, aren't they? And I take my hat off to you because I know you've done a few of them in the past, and well done, because my sort of like level of being able to deal with children's parties.
There's a tolerance. There is a tolerance.
Yeah, that's it. My tolerance was very low, whereas I think you were amazing. So well done, you.
Again, actually, I have recently just hung up my tiara. And it's been 10 years. So,
wow! Yeah, amazing! Congratulations. That's impressive.
So I've been doing princess really parties, but a bit of part-time princess, part-time panto, part-time princess. Just I'm a part-timer. For 10 years, kind of on and off in between projects, and it just felt time. I feel like I've outgrown it in a way. It was great while I had it.
Are you sort of like, are you happy that you've sort of like, you've done that and you've put that to the side, or is there a little bit of sort of like, oh, I'm gonna miss it?
It's hard because there were some really good ones and obviously some really bad ones, and I loved it just because it kept me in my training. So I'm a trained singer, so I would always sing at the parties, and I was always performing. Again, like you said, I put my all into everything. I don't just turn up and whack a costume on and hope for the best. I'll full accent, I know all the facts. I sing, I dance, and some of them were really cute. Like you said, you had some really good ones where you just see those kids and they're just absolutely in awe of you being that character. But they had some really bad ones where they're pulling your wig, you're sitting on chips in the middle of Pizza Express, so
contemplating life.
And contemplating your life decisions and choices. But even the good ones, I'll say, were exhausting. I still would always come out exhausted, and I think I've just I've got to a point in my career now where the priorities are in other directions.
Absolutely,
career-wise. But I will be, never say never. If the right opportunity came around, I could put that tiara back on, but like, I'm not doing it for a company anymore, and I'm not being like outsourced for it. So like, we're like end of eras in this podcast, which I love.
I know it does feel like that, but I always think like it's really lovely because you feel like you've achieved something, you've ticked that off the list, and you're like, I feel really ready now to put my focus elsewhere or into something else. And I think that's in a really nice place to be as well for both of us.
Exactly. I think like it's quite cathartic having this chat on the episode today about that and being like full circle. And before we wrap up, do you have anything or anyone that you want to shout about on the podcast before we end today?
Anything or anyone? I would say local theatre. Go and see your local theatre. I've seen quite a lot, like my local theatre. I mean, I'm quite lucky where I am. We've got lots of like, you know, little spaces above pubs and things like that, which always really fabulous stuff. But even things like the Churchill Theatre in Bromley, they've had some really brilliant productions over the last few months, and it's literally down the road. So I think, you know, revisiting your local theatres and keeping them alive is just as important as going into the West End. So yeah, I think that's my thing to shout about, is like, go see your local theatres, see what's on in your area, because there is stuff happening. It's just not always well promoted, I think.
It's, you know, the resource isn't there for it to be shouted about enough. So this platform, I'm so glad we can use it for things like that, of, you know, go see more of what's on your doorstep, seek it out if you can. And you know, when you produce local theatre, so we know how kind of important it is to the community. So yeah, absolutely, I love that. Thank you. And thank you so much for such a gorgeous organic chat today. I feel like we could go on forever, but I know you're a busy bee and you've got to do other things.
Dashing off to my next class now.
I know, dashing off to your next class. Thanks for fitting us in and for being like a vital part of the arts. And yeah, maybe we'll see you again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Parts of the Arts. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the others, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Also, we would love it if you could support this passion project by buying us a coffee. All the info is below. Thank you, and see you next time.